anybody even here? Oh, yeah. No, that's you guys. You guys are the only ones here. Okay. Let's hopefully that changes. Hey everybody, welcome to Telescope Talk. If it's Wednesday at 3 o'clock, the minute I hit the stream button, the noise hits. Go away, noise. Go away. Okay. Go away. There's some noise coming through on mine. I apologize for that. Anything like that. Get rid of it. Loud. Okay, it went through right then. Okay. We are streaming. I think the noise went away. I hope. And my apologies for that, folks. So here we are. It's Telescope Talk. Let's start again, shall we? Okay, because that's what we got to do. My name is Tony Darnell. I run DeepAstronomy.space and this very lucky YouTube channel where I have people who come by once in a while and watch what I've posted. And today, every other week on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we talk about telescopes. If you're interested in amateur astronomy, if you think you would like to be an amateur astronomy, if you've ever thought about, hey, wait a minute, it'd be kind of cool to have a telescope, but I don't know what to buy, and I don't want to buy a piece of crap, because if I buy a piece of crap, I'm not going to ever want to go out and use it, so what do I do? This is the hangout for you, if that is you, if you're that kind of person, because we want to get you involved in amateur astronomy. And what is amateur astronomy? Well, it's basically going outside and looking up and enjoying the night sky in whatever way you want to. You don't even have to have money to be an amateur astronomer or equipment to be an amateur astronomer. You can just look up and note the locations of all of the different things. Follow the patterns of the moon. Look at what the sunrises and sunsets are doing. That's amateur astronomy. People have been doing that since they were building stone circles in Stonehenge. So at that day, we're amateur astronomers, although they were probably getting paid, which makes them professional astronomers, which is the only real difference between the two. So welcome to this hangout. And today we want to talk about observatories. We want to talk about getting you, if you've ever thought about what are you going to do with this telescope once you've bought it, well, we're going to talk about that here. We're also going to, later on in the hangout, take some questions from people that I keep getting over and over again, both via email and on the comment section of the website. So you can, I'll read some of those out. These are common questions I always get. But we're live right now. We are broadcasting from sunny Florida and not so sunny UK and really nice and clear Germany. So we are doing great. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? And poor old UK guys. I mean, you guys always have the problem. Let me bring up my cohorts here. These are my fellow amateur astronomers from the other side of the pond. I represent the United States, but just by luck. I'm not representative of all amateur astronomers, but over there in the upper left is John Suffel. He is enjoying some old speckled hen while he hangs out with us. I make no disclaimers about his behavior as the hangout continues. Oh, look, and Alex, of course, Germany, right? Germans. They're always like, yeah, okay, yeah, we get it. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. You got a nice clear lager there. That looks lovely. And down on the bottom one is bottom panel is that was Alexander Rangers, by the way, in Germany, and down below is Adam Smith from also the UK. Do you have a pint too? Are you going to show up your pint?
Tea. I'm behaving.
A proper Englishman.
It helps tea.
Yeah. All right. So listen, folks. A couple of things I want to point out to your attention. Now, when it comes to, I don't do this to make money. I hope to one day get a sponsor for this hangout, but right now we don't have one. But one of the things I do have, and I want to point this out to you while we do these hangouts, is I have an influencer page on Amazon. And on it, I put all of the things that I think are kind of cool to have. The first question everybody always asks is, what telescope should I buy? Well, if you've never owned one before, I've got recommendations on this webpage. I've got some books that I thought were really good. This new book by Carolyn Collins Peterson she's a friend of mine. She's written a book on space exploration. I highly recommend that. I just had Jill Tarter on a hangout recently. Her new book is about her career is also there. And of course, who can forget Brian Cox, my hero, who's just written a new book on the universe, which is really great. So I wanted to let you guys know that. To get to it, all you have to do is go to amazon.com/shop/DeepAstronomy, but the link is in the description box. If you get something on it, you're helping Deep Astronomy a little bit. But really, it's just where I put things that I think, are decent to buy. If you want a Dobsonian, there's one there. You want a Barlow, there's a Barlow one there. And I'm going to start putting eyepieces on there as well. Just, you don't even have to buy it from this, but get an idea of what the product is. Go look for it somewhere else and buy it. That's good enough. But this is a holding place where I put things, and we've talked about some of these telescopes in the past. Okay. So, guys, each of you, my 3 amateur astronomers from the other side of the Atlantic, do you guys have a backyard observatory?
I don't.
Says no, John says no, and Alex says no. All 3 of these guys, I don't have one either. All of us combined probably have more experience underneath or behind the eyepiece than most people do in their whole lives working a job. There's a lot of experience here, and yet none of us have a backyard observatory. So what does that mean? It's not critical that you have one, but there's lots of good reasons to make one and to have one. I used to have one back when I lived in Colorado, but it was basically just a shed that I had built and put my stuff in, and then I drug it out at night to observe with. But there's a lot of good reasons for building an observatory. The basic one is to keep your stuff outside, set up, and protected from the elements, and you also want it to be secure so nobody steals it. So that's the basic idea, and almost any enclosure that you can think of would work. Now, I went on Pinterest, or I went on Google, and I did a Google search of backyard observatories, and I was sent to this Pinterest page, which has lots and lots of pictures of things people have done. Things from just a small little closet kind of thing, all the way to these are the most typical ones. These kind of things. These are called rolling roof. I have this kind where basically it's a shed, but when you build it, you just attach the roof and put it on wheels and scooch it out of the way so that you can use it to observe at night with. This is the most common, mostly because they're easy to build. But you can also get real fancy and build yourself a dome, which a lot of people. Here's somebody who built a dome. You can buy these domes. We'll talk about that later in the hangout. But you can buy these domes as a commercial item as well. There's a company called Skyshed, which I'm going to tell you about later, that you can just buy a whole thing. Just buy it and put it in your backyard and be done with it. So these are kind of cool. They're very simple. You can do a quick online search to see backyard observatories. But we're going to give you some tips on things that you should probably watch out for. Why don't you guys have any experience with backyard observatories yourself? I mean, you guys are all active in clubs. Do you have any friends or somebody around the UK that you've actually gone in and used their stuff?
Yeah, there are good reasons why I don't have my own backyard observatory. One, my backyard faces north.
Your backyard faces north? Okay.
Yeah, ideally you'd want it to face south because it gives you a much better view of the night sky. I'm also surrounded by trees, woodland. There's loads of very tall trees at the back of my house. So that would be a problem, is a problem for observing.
And why, talk a little bit about why south facing is so much better than north facing?
Well, if you face north, you won't see any of the planets, for one thing. You can't get a good view of the sun, and you can't see most of the interesting things that are in the night sky in the northern hemisphere, like the Orion Nebula is in the south. You know, there are still things you can observe. There are plenty of galaxies.
Yeah, now another point we should clarify is that he's talking about the northern hemisphere observers. In the south, facing north is probably a good idea. And
yeah.
If you've ever gone outside, and this is where you, by now, if you've been watching our hangouts and you follow Deep Astronomy, you've been going outside and looking up, right? You've been doing it. I know you have been. And so what you do when you look up and you see what the pattern is, if you look north, you see Polaris, all you're going to see are all the stars going around the North Star. Those are the circumpolar constellations. And then you'll see some going overhead. But if you turn around 180 and you face south, that's where you look up, you see things like the bright dots that are the planets. In fact, before we started, Alex was showing us Venus with his webcam. You got the moon, the sun, all of that stuff follows the ecliptic plane, which is better seen in the northern hemisphere from the south. So, south face, if you've got a lot of trees in your yard, in your property, and all of them are south, they're blocking your southern view, just chop them down and and build an observatory so you can see the south. And don't worry about your neighbors. I'll cover for you. Okay. So I said, no, he's building an observatory, man. He had to cut your tree down because it was in the way. Okay. It was in the way. So by all means, feel free to cut down your trees and your neighbor's trees. I'm getting so much trouble for saying stuff like that.
I'll have to get you to get in touch with my neighbors, Tony.
Yeah, because get rid of them trees, man. They just block. We got to look at the stars. That's what we're here for. And so, I mean, I have a piece of property here. I have 5 acres where I live, but it's filled with oak trees. And where the only place where I can go is an area where it has really good northern exposure, but really crappy southern exposure, just like Adam. And I just haven't felt the need to build, or I'd have to go through a lot of work to have a good southern exposure. So that's a good point. You want to be able to look south to build your observatory. You guys have any other points you want to make? Any advice?
Light pollution. You need a reasonably dark sky. You know, if your backyard is under neighbors' security lights or street lighting, probably a waste of time.
Well, wait a minute though, because you're right that light pollution, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But think about it. If you've got a street light in your across the street that's shining into your property and you really can't do anything about it, an observatory actually helps you here, because you can build walls, high walls, that block out that light. And when you're sitting in a dark room shaded from that light, you actually get better night vision. Now, that does nothing to help you with the overall sky glow, but it does keep the light out of your face, which does help you look better through the eyepiece. So there's an advantage even there. And as we've talked about in past hangouts, especially when we were talking about filters, you can buy filters that will filter out a lot of the mercury vapor lamps, certainly the sodium vapor lamps that are around the area, and basically negates that sky glow. So even if you have a crappy sky, I probably wouldn't do this in the city, although people have done it. You know, Adam has a good point, but in this case, it actually behooves you to build an observatory because you it blocks a lot of the ambient light. I had a street light like that once, and huddling behind, I actually put up a curtain around me so that when I just didn't have to keep, every time I glanced in that direction, boom, my night vision was ruined, right? So here I could keep it I could keep myself cloistered. And of course I know what you're saying. Here's Tony in the dark, surrounded by a curtain, huddling around a telescope. A little bit weird. Okay. But you know what? It's dark. I don't care. I'm getting night sky viewing done. So, all right. How about you, Alex? You have some of the best equipment I've ever seen. How come you've never really needed one?
Well, I have a balcony observatory. I'm flexible, and backyard observatory is something, you know, as you said, light pollution. We in Germany, we have almost LED lights everywhere, so you will have this difficulties also with the interference filters for for the sky glow. You would really have a problem here, so you have to go out.
You have a permanent pier, don't you, Alex? You have a permanent pier built on your observatory.
Well, it's a pier, but it's still flexible. It's still flexible, and yeah. If I go out, I use a tripod, and I'm fine.
Okay. Larry Keys, there's quite a bit of background noise, and the balance between microphones is not good. I know, Larry. I'm doing the best I can. I think. Hey, John, are you muted? Are you muted, John? Yes, you are. Okay, so it's not John this time. There's a bad background noise. Maybe it's you, John, as your image is also flickering. All right, so I tell you what, everybody mute until you want to talk, and then unmute, and maybe that'll help. Okay. Unfortunately, guys, what you have to realize is that there's no money here. We're just doing this in our own spare time, and so we use what equipment we've got. These guys don't broadcast every week, and so they don't do it as regularly as I do. And as soon as Deep Astronomy gets some money, I'm going to buy these guys some microphones and headphones that would make them sound a lot better. But until that day comes, we got to put up with this. I'm really sorry, but there's just nothing I can do about it. If you want to,
we work hard on this.
All of us talk. So, and so welcome Exoplanets channel just went over to your YouTube channel. Pretty nice. I just subscribed. Oh, Exoplanets. Yeah, good job. So Galaxia is here, and it's good to see Galaxia again. Yes, Galaxia, to answer your question, I think you asked me a question about going to the launch in a couple of weeks. I am going, and I think you're coming down, so that'll be great. We'll definitely have a chance to hopefully meet. I'm hoping we can make that happen. All right, good. I don't hear the noise anymore, folks. Please comment that if it's better or worse. Thank you, Larry, for this. I'm doing the best I can. But you guys, I know this is a pain for you, but if you could mute and unmute when you want to talk, I think that would make the experience better. Okay. Where was I? Oh, we were talking about. Oh, Alex, you were telling us about you have a permanent pier set up in your backyard, right? What does that consist of?
It's a steel pier, and it has 3 feet, we say in Germany.
That's about a meter?
Yeah. A tripod, yeah. But it's still flexible. It's not permanent. But I leave it out permanently on my balcony. So, yeah, if I want to go out and drink some pictures, I set up my scope and do imaging. And if I go out, I use my Dobson, and I'm flexible for going out for really dark skies.
Oh yeah,
around the area here.
Dobsonians are great for that. They really are. So that's a good point, Alex. So a backyard observatory, as I said at the beginning, should be helping protect your equipment from the elements, and also protect it from theft, but also make it easy to set up. A good compromise is a permanent pier, just a strong, sturdy, cylindrical thing sticking up out of the ground that won't move. Now, in America, and I'm not sure about Europe and the UK, but what you can do is you can buy these concrete forms that are about 6 to 8 inches in diameter. They also make great telescope tubes, by the way. And you can dig those in the ground about 18 inches or so, half a meter or so, and then fill them with concrete. And then you can put in at the top, while the concrete is setting, you can put in little bolts to mount your mount on. Now, what's great about that is that for imaging, that's one rock sturdy, solid mount. That thing's not going to move. I don't care what you're in. And it'll hold your telescope very steady for imaging, but it also makes setup a little bit easier. You can just grab your equatorial wedge, put it on top of there, bolt it on, mount your optical tube, plug things in. It's an easier setup than aligning a tripod. You could also do it such that when you put your equatorial wedge on, it's automatically polar aligned every single time. You could put little scribe marks on there or whatever to make alignment a lot easier. So that's cool. You don't necessarily need a building But having said that, it's only a little bit extra work to build a shed around it and have power strung out to it. And the next thing you know, you're remote observing, man. Do you do that, by the way, guys? Do you guys set up your scope and then just go inside and use your computer? Do you guys do that?
Yes, I do.
Do you do it, John?
I want to do that.
You do what?
I want to do that, but no, I'm outside with the telescope.
Yeah, there you go. You're old school. I know you are, John. Yeah, you're like me. You want to get out there behind the eyepiece and freeze your butt off, and that's, I know. I feel you, man. That's a lot more fun. Okay. Well, so there's a couple of other points. So Adam has already talked about location. Location is important, but sometimes you don't got a choice, right? You live where you live. You know, you make the best of what you got. If you've got south-facing trees, that's the worst possible situation. But you know what you do? Let's say they're all kind of in the southeast, and there's a big clump of trees, and you can't see Jupiter until it gets above those trees. Well, that's fine. You're still going to see Jupiter eventually. Just let it get up there high enough so that your telescope can see it, and then you can start observatorying. That's not a verb. I know that's not a verb. I just used it as one. But okay. So, and I haven't even had any old speckled hen, so I don't even know why I'm talking that way. Anyway, you can make allowances. I've observed in places where I only had a little narrow gap in between trees, but that gap faced south, and I had maybe a good hour or two while Jupiter or the moon or whatever, the Orion Nebula, whatever it was I was looking at, passed through that gap. So you can make do with your location. And even you can't do a lot about light pollution either, but like I said, they help you with light pollution. I think better than not having an observatory. But the one thing you got to be careful of, and this is something you can control. If you're going to build an observatory, don't build it out of anything that's got a high thermal mass. What does that mean? That means things that when they get hot, it takes a long time for them to cool down. They radiate heat all night long. In the University of Colorado, where I went to school, there was a mandated thing of all the university buildings had to be built out of this flagstone. It was beautiful flagstone, flat rocks you get from Colorado mountains. It was absolutely gorgeous. And they built the observatory out of that. Well, the observatory was basically useless. This was the Somersbosch Observatory because the bricks, the flagstone, radiated all night long. What does that mean? You're sitting in the dome, and the air in the dome is swirling because it's still, it's thermally active, and you want steady air. And so it was stupid. And so what they did was they came up with this really elaborate vent system where they would open up windows and turn on fans to get the air. It wouldn't cool. The bricks would still be radiating all night long, but at least the air going over the telescope was laminar. It was steady, right? And it wasn't like boiling and roiling like you see on a hot summer night. So bricks, cinder blocks. In England, you guys are famous for these stone, what are they called? Freestone fences. Anyway, they're beautiful. I love them. They're all over the place in England. You know what I'm talking about. Those rocks.
Dry stone wall.
Yes, those are the ones. And not those. Okay, don't build it out of those either.
No.
The best material for building an observatory is just wood. Regular old 2x4s and plywood. And the reason for that is they don't store heat. They don't absorb heat throughout the day, and they don't radiate it away all night long. They're very in equilibrium. If you look at modern observatories now, the big ones built in South America, you'll see that they are built out of very thin metal material, which isn't great either, but it's better than stone. But it has the advantage they also install these computer-controlled vents that actually open and close throughout the night to vent the inside of the observatory, because you want the inside of the observatory to be the same exact temperature as the outside of the observatory. So don't bother buying insulation. Don't insulate it. Just build a wood shed. That's why they're all made of sheds, because, that's easy to do. So I think, yeah. So I think that was a point that that John wanted to make, was about, people are just, if you have an old shed in your back garden, feel free to commandeer it. Tell your wife I said it's okay. Okay, just say, no, we need an observatory, honey. I'm sorry, we got to build this observatory, and I will support you in that. So there is some things. Let me just pull this back up again. So in addition to all these different designs that you see here for backyard observatories, there is a company called SkyShed in the United States where you can buy one of these for $2,800, and you can just say sod the whole thing, right? You can get one of these. These are made out of that plastic stuff that wheelie bins are made out of, right? So they're real durable plastic. They also have a low thermal mass. They don't cost, or they don't store heat or anything like that. And you could buy all the kind of these little optional modules and bays. This is for stuff like if you want, like this little bay here, if you wanted to store some stuff that's out of your way, that you could buy that. And it's very simple. It's expensive, but this is what a lot of I've seen these in universities and astronomy departments install these to put their freshmen astronomy courses. They go out and they do observing, and they built a bunch of these, and then they put them outside to do it. But that's an example of a commercial thing that's available. But let me just show you my favorite. I have to show you my favorite. It's this one here. In America, we have this thing called Rubbermaid. And Rubbermaid is a plastic manufacturer of wheelie bins and trash cans and all kinds of stuff. Well, they also make a shed. And here's an example of somebody who took just off the shelf. You go to Lowe's, Home Depot, B&G, wherever you live, and you go buy one of these. They're like $600. Last time I checked, they were like $600 or $700. And you put it together, but instead of attaching the roof, you just leave it out, and then you take it off. You just have a real quick disconnect system for it, so the wind doesn't blow it away. And and you're observing.
I've seen ones very similar where the roof slides to the side or forwards. The roof can slide off it.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would be. You mean a roll off, like?
Yeah.
Let me go back to this. So something. Where did I see a roll off observatory? Like this one right here.
Yeah,
this is a very simple.
That's perfect.
This is just a square made out of plywood, sitting on a little bit off the ground. He's got rocks right here, which is a bad idea. But
the roll-off roof, that's perfect.
Yeah, that roof right here is very lightweight. You just grab it, pull it off to the side, and you go in and you start observing. These are very, very common. Lots of people make these. So then because they're just real simple. So. I ran across a sky and telescope page when I was getting ready for this hangout. If you just do a quick search on Google, observatory, sky and telescope, it has 8 backyard mistakes to avoid. The first one is what Adam was talking about, and the second one is material. What you build it out of matters, and things like that. Most of it is just common sense stuff. But here's this point I really like. Plan for the future. So let's say you've been taking our advice here on Telescope Talk, and you bought yourself an 8-inch telescope, whether it's a Schmidt-Cassegrain or a Dobsonian, whatever it is. You bought an 8-inch telescope. You're really getting into amateur astronomy. You love it. And you build an observatory, you put your 8-inch in there, and even built a little pier for it and everything else. But then you go, oh, hey, now you're buying a 14-inch telescope. You buy a bigger one, and you got all the attendant stuff, and now your shed's not big enough, right? Go ahead, take my advice. Go ahead and just build a huge observatory. Imagine yourself with a 20-inch. Do they make 20-inch Meads? I don't think so.
Yes.
Do they? Okay.
Yes, they do.
They did. Now the biggest is 14-inch, but they did. The one in the 70s was the 22-inch.
22-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. Could you imagine 22-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope in your backyard? But you buy one, right? Well, suddenly your little 8-inch shed's not going to work anymore. So plan for the future. Build yourself and really surprisingly, the pier is the most important, but it's also the cheapest part to build.
And also important is if you build something around the pier, don't have it in direct contact with the pier due to vibrations with the wind,
Yep.
or you around the floor or something. You must avoid to have vibrations on the pier to have unclear picture. Or
Excellent point.
Don't
That's right.
You got to have a stable pier.
And if you ever go to a professional observatory, look at what we're talking about. Go to any professional observatory that they may have a public night, a public viewing. Look at their they have this giant mount sitting there with a big telescope on it. Look at the floor around the telescope. It won't be touching.
Yeah.
And that's so that when you get people clomping around on the floor, it's not causing the whole apparatus to shake and vibrate. So dig yourself a hole about 18 inches in, put in a concrete tube, pour in a bunch of concrete, let it dry, fill in the hole around it. You've got yourself, for whatever the concrete costs, here in the United States, it's about $2.85 a bag. Let's say you need, I don't know, 20 bags. That's not much. And that's it. That's the most important, but it's also the easiest to build and the least expensive part of the whole shebang. So, and as Alex says, build around it. Don't attach stuff to it that people are going to be stomping around on. So, good advice. Okay. Well, is there anything more we want to say about observatories, guys? Oh, John is going to be our ambassador in the UK, right? John, you're going to get some people to come and join us.
Yeah, well, hoping to. Let's go on Monday at the next Astronomy Club meeting and see how it goes. Take it from there.
Great. All right. So, yeah, that's another. I hope you guys are doing this. You follow these hangouts. You're going to your Astronomy Club meetings. I haven't, as I was saying before the hangout started to these guys, I haven't been going. There's a Central Florida Association that's very active, and I really want to go, but I haven't had a chance yet because I'm really always seem to never have the time. But I'm putting together a JWST talk that's going to be a public talk, and I'm one of the people I'm hoping to be able to go see our local astronomy clubs, and that will give me a chance and a reason to go to them and put forth the idea of what we're doing and to maybe get involved. But my amateur astronomy days, I'm just not doing it that much anymore as I would like to. I'm a naked eye observer. I go out and the last real thing that I did in amateur astronomy that really thrilled me was when I was in Newcastle. It was the only place I've ever seen the ISS is in England, because it happens to pass over that area quite a bit in its orbit. In fact, before we started the hangout, Alex was trying to show us the ISS go by over using his webcam. We didn't see it, but he did just tonight, didn't you, Alex? So anyway, that's sort of all I'm doing right now with my amateur astronomy stuff, but it is important for you guys, if you're just starting out, to please talk to others. And hopefully this hangout is helping. You will send us emails after this is over and send us live chats while we're doing it. Does anybody have you been monitoring the live chat, guys? Any comments or questions? Oh, comments on zoning or Cosmic Lettuce. Hi, by the way. Homeowners Association rules and when it comes to neighborhood observatories. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have this in Europe. Do you guys have homeowners associations? Do you know what those are?
No, but we have planning regulations.
Yeah.
And they vary from place to place, town to town.
We have those too. We have counties and cities that regulate what you can and can't do. But we also have this thing called homeowners associations. These are not official entities of any kind, and yet they act like they are. You buy a house in a neighborhood that's really pretty and all the houses look the same, and everybody is in everybody else. I hate homeowners associations. I'm just going to say it right now. But anyway, they get up in your grill, and when you buy that house, you have to sign a piece of paper that says you're not going to paint your house a certain color. You're not going to have more than so many cars parking out front. You're not going to, and they have to be the right kind of cars. They have to all fit in the garage. If you're not going to park, you can't park too many outside. Your garden has to be cut regularly, or you're going to start getting harassed. I mean, it's just awful here, right? So if you live in one of those and you want to build an observatory, it's a luck of the draw as to whether or not your homeowners association will let you. You're going to have to go ask permission, show them what you're planning on building, and they're not going to say, well, we don't want some big ugly shed sitting in the backyard that's got a roll-off roof. And they may make you buy one of those cool dome ones. I don't know. But it's an issue, and I don't know how to tell you to deal with it other than civil disobedience and build your own damn thing and make them take you to court over it. But I can't really advise that. So homeowners association, not a lot you can do. However, you do need, in most cases, in some areas, get a permit. And this is what Adam was saying. You have to go to your zoning area and say, look, I want to build a shed in my backyard. Here's the plans for it. And, you know, they'll give you a permit to build it. Then they got to come out and inspect it and all that crap. So, unfortunately, it's a reality in some places. Sometimes, some places it's worse than others. I have never actually gotten a permit to put up a shed. If you go to Home Depot and you buy one of those Rubbermaid things, I don't think you're going to need a permit. If you buy one of those sky sheds, I can't imagine you need a permit for that. But maybe you do, especially if you're going to put in a concrete pad on it or something. So that's a good question, Cosmic. I wish there's no one size fits all.
I think with UK regulations, it don't so much matter about the base. It's the building itself. If it's made out of brick, then it's classed as a permanent structure. If it's made out of wood, then it isn't.
What's it called again?
Sorry,
the you said there was the pier itself is not.
I don't think it matters what the base is made out of. A concrete base is fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it varies depending on the location, but you may be right. It could if you build a structure
in Germany, you got to keep a certain distance, about a half meter or something, to the next private property, to a neighbor, for example. You buy some sheds or something, but I don't know any other regulations in Germany.
Yeah, yeah. In the United States, it's ironically probably harder to build this stuff than it is in Europe. People think, you know, it's funny what we regulate here and what we don't, but we definitely care about structures outside the house more than we care about other things. I don't want to get political, but it's weird. It's really weird. So check your area. What I've always done is I've always felt like it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. So I build it first, especially if it's not a big deal. If I'm just putting up a little 10 by 10 square, you know, shed out of wood, and I'm going to put my telescope stuff in there, I'm not going to ask. I won't even probably get a permit. Now, if I'm going to put up a friend of mine built one. He got an he did something really cool. I should tell you the story. A friend of mine many years ago got a grain silo dome. This was a thing that went on the top of a grain silo. Now, a grain silo is this long cylindrical thing made out of corrugated steel, and on the top of it, they're capped with the dome. And that's how farmers store their grain while they're waiting for it to be bought. Well, in farmer supply stores, you can buy these domes, and they're relatively inexpensive. And he bought one of those. It was like a 20-foot one, really big, right? And he built this wooden. He poured a concrete pier first, big concrete pier, and he because we were at 40 degrees north latitude. This was in Colorado. He leveled one side of the face of it that faced toward north at 40 degrees, so that when the polar axis was mounted on there, it pointed straight towards north. And then he built around it this wooden base that was about 8 feet high, and then you could stand on it. And then he put on top of it that dome, that silo dome. It was really cool. But then the county saw it. And they were like, "What is this?" And he goes, "Well, it's my observatory. Come on in, take a look." And you can't build that here. Now, it didn't help that it was right on near a major highway. So a lot of people noticed it and commented on it. So anyway, cautionary tale. He ended up getting the permit for it and everything was fine. But interesting story, because and it's an idea for you if you want to have a dome. Some people just want a dome. And
Tony, how is your friend doing now?
What's that?
How is your friend doing
I haven't
now?
talked to him in
Is
many,
there-
many years, but as far as I know, the observatory is still out doing its thing. He was going to put what was he going to put in that? God, so long ago. Initially, he was going to put a 20-inch Newtonian on it, but I think he's changed to a Schmidt Cassegrain since then. Anyway, it was huge. It didn't need to be that big, but it was basically dictated by the size of the dome of the silo. You couldn't get one smaller, so that's why he did it. So let's see. Okay. Put the vertical wedge angle into the pier and make it vertical. Put the wedge angle into the pier and make it vertical. Oh yeah, you can do that. You can. That's what I was just saying. You can make the pier equal to your latitude, or is it your latitude minus 90 degrees? What is it, guys? I think it's your latitude. So if you are at 40 degrees north latitude and you need to have an angle that is at 40 degrees, not 90 minus 40. I have to look that up. I think it's 40 degrees. Anyway, when you mount it, then when that concrete slab is at 40 degrees and you mount something on it, it's already polar aligned. If you have, for example, fork mounts, it's already polar aligned. So, yeah. Galaxia is going, and I was just contemplating staying in Florida forever. Yeah, well, let's see, something to think about, right? It's always something. Florida is a weird place. I'll tell you stories about Florida sometime. You wouldn't believe what my wife, who's from Newcastle, really just obviously can't believe the stuff she sees here. Okay, so that's it on observatories, I think. What do you guys? You want to add anything more? Because I want to get to some questions.
There are some other things you need, like power. You're going to need power, particularly if you want to use a go-to scope, a computer.
Yep.
You're going to need electricity. The more power points, the better. If you think you need 2, get 4. If you think you need 4, get 8. You will need them. Security is another issue. You know, how bad is your neighborhood for burglary, vandalism as well? These are all things you need to take into account. If you're going to build your own observatory and put your expensive telescope in it, it needs to be safe and secure. So that is something you need to think about. Maybe insurance, possibly, maybe an alarm. And there are other considerations, just like what's the local wildlife like?
Oh, wildlife! I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Are you going to get?
You guys have a badger problem out there, don't you?
No, we don't have a badger problem. Badgers are lovely.
Okay, that's the wrong way to say it. You're right. I shouldn't have said problem. You have a lot of badgers out there, don't you?
But yeah, rats can get into observatories. They like chewing on cables.
They do. That's true.
So do squirrels. Wasps like building their nests in quiet places like out of the way little observatories.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you need to be careful. Well, just be aware what might be living in your observatory.
Yeah, and if it's not too far away, let's say it's about 10 or 20 feet away from your house, get one of these. This is a Wise security camera. I spent $20 on it. It connects to my Ethernet, and I can have, here it actually is. So I can have this on and monitoring my equipment. It has a night vision sensor on it. You can just have it pointing down at your telescope. It's a good way to get peace of mind if you are going to be, you just want to check on the status of your telescope while you're away. So it works really well. I love those cameras. I bought 3 of them, and they work amazingly well, actually. And they're $20, so something to consider. A good security system. And okay, well, let's move on to a couple of questions that I always get, and I'm gonna if you have questions and you're watching live, please ask us. We're here. I'm looking, and would love to. If you guys come across any questions, please read them out. Okay, but I'm just going to start this little section off by going to questions that people always ask me that I've gotten on my website and things like that. And the first one is, I have $1,000 to spend. What telescope should I buy? Okay, so let me just point you back to this Amazon page. If you have $1,000 to spend and you want to know which telescope you want to buy one of these. Okay, that's my answer. Pick your price range and get one. Here is a nice 8-inch Schmidt-Cast tube from Celestron. Excellent. It's $800. But I would, if you only have $400, then buy this Orion Dobsonian. If you only have $700, buy this Orion tube. All of these are good telescopes for your budget. I'm going to go back though to what I said, or what we said in the first one of the first hangouts. Don't spend if you just did saying I have $1,000. What should I buy? Isn't the right question to ask. You spend your $1,000. You're going to get a decent scope. I can't imagine you spending $1,000 on a telescope and getting a bad one. Okay, I don't care what you buy. But the thing is, ask yourself, do I want to spend $1,000 on a telescope? That's the real question, because you don't want to get a telescope, set it up, not be happy with it, not be happy with having a telescope, and then you get resentful that you don't have yourself $1,000 anymore. Spend a couple $100, get a nice telescope, see some things, decide if you like it.
And spend $50 for going to star parties and test some telescopes from the other amateurs.
Even better.
Way more interesting.
That's right. Go to a star party and look at their $10,000 setup and go, wow, that's $10,000. I want one of those. So then you can ask me, I have $10,000. What should I buy? Now I can help you. Okay. And now I got some stuff for you. But yeah, that's really good advice.
You don't have to buy new.
No, you don't have to buy new. Go to Craigslist or Gumtree in the UK or whatever they have in Germany that you can buy things off of. Go
exactly
there, and check out the used stuff. Like right now, I'm looking to buy a canoe, and the last thing I want to do is buy a brand new one. So I'm going to Craigslist, and I'm going to look at Craigslist canoes. So. Yeah, I almost never buy anything brand new anymore. I almost always buy things from other people because it's, less waste that way, I think. But sometimes, this kind of thing you want to buy brand new. You want to know what the history of your optics are and things like that. I get that. And you won't necessarily know when you buy used whether or not it's any good. It might have a scratch somewhere or making it useless. And if you're a beginner, you may not be able to catch that. So it's okay buying new. Just pick your budget. I would not spend. I'm sorry, if you've never owned a telescope before, don't spend more than $500. Just don't. Buy yourself a pair of binoculars. Spend 90. There's one telescope on here I just found. Where'd it go? Oh, I don't see it now. I thought I put it on here. Oh yeah, I have to hit refresh. So here, check this out. Look at this. Look at this. So here is a Orion equatorial reflector, $279. But look at this thing. I love this. This is a tabletop telescope, which is another question somebody was asking about. What about tabletop scopes? And it looks like Alex has one. And Alex, keep that there. I'm going to keep you going here in just a minute. I'm going to show it. But look at this thing. I mean, $200, and it sits on your table. It's a Maxitoff telescope. I love this little guy, and this I would take in place of my Astroscan. Remember I told you about the Edmund Astroscan? Well, this is like the 21st century version of it. Okay, sits on your table, comes with an eyepiece, stuff like that. Now let me show you what Alex has got. Alex has something going here.
Well, this is the first scope from Astron. I bought it used. I was just curious about it, and it was about 40 euros or $40, and those eyepieces are really crap. They deliver it, and I use this with 70 degrees eyepiece, and makes just a beautiful picture of the sky. You can see the whole Andromeda galaxy with it. So the most expensive part of that setup is this eyepiece. It is about 115 euros, and the scope itself is about 40 euros. It is used, and then maybe 20 euros this pointer, this LED pointer, and you will have fun with it.
40 euros,
so
man. That
set up for less than $300.
Yeah, that's awesome. And he spent more on the eyepiece than he did on the
yeah.
telescope. So,
and you will use this on your next scope. I can promise you.
Well, that is another question that I get a lot, and let's go ahead and go to that, and that is on eyepieces. How do you know which eyepieces to buy? The thing about buying eyepieces, and Alex just alluded to this, was that you're always going to be able to use them on other things. They come in two standard sizes. We talked about that before: 2-inch diameter and 1.25-inch diameter, and they fit. But it doesn't matter. They'll fit on most telescopes, and you can reuse those no matter what. So it pays to get a good set of eyepieces, and they range from they're generally characterized by their focal length in millimeters. So a 40 millimeter eyepiece will be the focal length of that little eyepiece, and it's directly proportional to the magnification that you'll get out of that telescope. And the way you figure out what your magnification is going to be is you take that 40 millimeters and you divide it into your focal length of your telescope, again in millimeters, and that tells you your magnification. So if 40 goes into 1,000, that's your magnification. So let me get you guys back up again. So that's how they're characterized. So you want different, and they're also characterized by field of view, how wide the area of sky they let you see. The wider that is, the more expensive the eyepiece becomes. Also, the bigger around it becomes. Hang on, Alex. I'm not showing you real quick. Let me get that up. Let me click on you. There you go. So
You get two sizes of eyepieces. The 1.25-inch in diameter, just a small one. You can use it on this little scope, and it's also this 2-inch diameter. You have it here.
There you go. There you go.
So this eyepiece has got both sizes, and you can use it on small scopes and on very big scopes.
And notice that it's a 24 millimeter eyepiece. What design is that?
Hyperion from Baader is a German brand, and it has got a 70 degrees field of view. So you will have a lot of fun with it.
Now that's an apparent field of view. Okay, that's that it's not an act. You're not seeing 70 degrees of the sky.
The sky will have with this scope about 5 to 6 degrees. That's a lot of stuff.
Right.
The moon has got about half a degree in diameter, and well, it's a good combination.
Yes, and so
for wide field fans.
You'll find as you get into this hobby that you'll be spending a lot of money on eyepieces because they're so interchangeable, and you want different ones for different things. Like my favorite eyepiece used to be a 7 millimeter Plössl that I had. It was about this big, and it was 1.25 inches. It was high magnification, but it gave me a wide field of view. It was my favorite eyepiece for using for looking at the planets with, because when I had that in there, I was looking at high magnification views of Mars or Jupiter or whatever it is I was looking at. And I really like that eyepiece. So the lower the focal length number, the higher the magnification is going to be, because that number goes into your focal length of your telescope a higher number of times. So you get higher and higher magnifications. But an important characteristic is the apparent field of view it also gives you. And that's where the money comes in. You can spend a lot of money on wide field of view eyepieces. And why do you want that? Because imagine you're looking through the universe through a straw. That's hard. It's hard to find stuff. But now imagine you're looking at it through a kitchen roll towel tube, right? Well, that's a much better way to look at the sky. So, that's why they're important. But to get that field of view is expensive. It needs more optical elements in the eyepiece, and so they just because of that, it becomes more expensive. So anyway,
please, you should have at least 3 eyepieces for your telescope: high-powered, medium, and low-powered. And believe me, you will not be using a high-powered eyepiece very often.
Yeah, and what would you classify as a high-powered eyepiece?
Something that gives about 200 times magnification.
Right, so that'd be something like 5 millimeters, something like that. So
yeah.
You don't want to go too much. I agree. You don't need to go any higher than that. But your go-to eyepiece are going to be your 40 millimeters, your 26 millimeters. Those are going to be the ones you end up using the most, I think.
Yeah, something that will give you about 100 times magnification.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the one you use the most, I think.
If you've got a really good mount, the 26 millimeters are going to give you superb views. But you just saw what Alex had. Alex had his table. Is that a tabletop telescope, or is that just off of a tripod?
You can see it here.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me make you big. Okay. Oh yeah. So that's just not it's just not mounted on a tripod. Okay. You paid €40 for that?
Yeah.
That's a good deal, man. That's a really good deal. So yeah.
And the original eyepiece, you can use it as a cheap dust cap. That's what they are good for. But for using them for visual observations, they are crap.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So there you go, folks. Eyepieces is a big question I get a lot about. How many do you need? What should you buy them for? Well, that's just it. You're going to want a 40 millimeter, a 26 millimeter, and I think John's advice is spot on. 7 millimeter ish, 3 eyepieces. Just start with those. Don't skimp. Buy Plossels. Buy something good. You might expect to pay. I don't know. What are they going to cost now, guys? About $150.
$100, yeah.
Yeah, about $100.
For $100.
Yeah. And then just play around, and then do some research. We're going to do a hangout on some of the eyepiece designs, more than what we've already done. I want to get into the high-end Nicholas at some point. So.
Yeah, but what's this one?
Are you showing us one?
Yeah, Panaview. It's a 2-inch eyepiece. It costs less than £100.
That's a nice looking eyepiece. Teleview is a great brand, by the way. They have high quality stuff, so you're not going to get. I'll put some of those on my little recommendation list if they're sold on Amazon.
You see there the front lens. It's a glorious piece of glass to look through.
Yeah, that's what you look through. Imagine how pleasing that's going to be to look in there. It's like watching TV. You look in there, you just see. It's like watching the telly. Looking in that eyepiece, it's beautiful.
Yes, look at 70 degrees plus 70 to 100 degrees. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Alpha, it's about 70 degrees. The alpha design. It's for an 8 lens design of eyepieces.
Yeah, this one's a 70 degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are alpha. They are about 70 degrees, so I can recommend them because they're very, very deep. Also, if you buy them new, they're very low price. For about $100 for one eyepiece. In this class, they are low price.
Well, this one, it's by Celestron, the Ultima. This is a 13 millimeter. It's like the one that Alex showed, so it's 1.25.
Yeah.
Works
for 2 sizes, yeah.
That's
and
what
again,
was the size? Did you say 15?
This one at 13.
13.
I'm looking for some, but still a very nice piece of glass to look through.
So of all your eyepieces,
very good eye relief.
Of all your eyepieces, what's your favorite?
I don't think I have a favorite. It just depends what I'm looking at the time.
Okay, way to hedge the question there, John. You don't have a favorite, one that you're always got putting in your eyepiece for your focuser first.
Well, I've got a Celestron 8 millimeter to 24 millimeter zoom.
Oh, a zoom. We didn't talk about zoom. Yes, folks, they make zoom eyepieces where you can just twist a little thing and you get different magnifications right there. I've never used those. You like that? That's one of your favorites. All right, hang on, Alex. What do you got? Oh, here come the eyepieces, folks. March of the eyepieces. They're getting out their eyepieces now. Okay, 120.
Explore Scientific 120 degrees.
Yeah.
9 millimeter, and this is the 100 millimeter, 20 degree, 100 degrees, 20 millimeter.
20 millimeters. Wow. Look how big that.
These are my most favorite. I just use those, and I'm fine.
That's cool. That's amazing. That's bigger than your scope, dude.
A good counterweight.
Yeah.
Good options.
All right. Well, let's see. Did I get to Larry's question on the pier? We did talk about flat versus not flat. There's no reason to make your pier not flat. I mean, there's no reason not to go ahead and since you're never going to move it. it's always going to stay in the same latitude. You may as well go through the trouble and setting it to your latitude. I would. While you're going through the work. It just makes it that one less step. You're always polar aligned no matter what you do. So that's really nice. Okay. Well, we're out of time, guys. So I'm going to go ahead.
If I could just, Alex, could you show the mounting for your
Little one.
No, for the red dot finder.
One?
The actual mounting on the telescope. Right.
It's all delivered with this pointer, and it's all equipped with it, and you just got to screw it on, and you'll find.
Yeah. Now the thing is, with a lot of telescopes, you'll get a crappy little finder scope, which bolts on, much like Alex's finder scope there. These are easy to replace with a proper finder shoe. On the inside of the telescope, a couple of little bolts, take them off, a finder shoe, which costs about £5 or £6, goes on, you don't have to start drilling. It comes with its own bolts, just replace it, then you can use any red dot finder or telescope that you want.
Now it's just a tube, right? It's a zero magnification thing that you look through, right, guys?
Well, that's the red dot finder.
Yeah, and
it just bolts on.
Yeah,
but those bolts you can take off.
Yeah,
and replace the finder shoe.
Yeah.
And the advantage
with this finder, they are all equipped with bases. You can use there are 8 different bases, I think, for this little finder, and you can equip almost any telescope with this little red dot finder. So this is very good. It's about $30.
Yeah, they're really inexpensive, and they'll make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
The piece of glass in there is a little bit misleading. It's not an optical element. It's just something that the red dot can reflect off of. So you can see it kind of like a heads-up display when you look at the sky. So, yeah, it's a good way to find what you're looking for and get the telescope pointed in that general direction. You need that aligned, though, don't you, Alex? That needs to be
Yes,
aligned.
you can. You can use it or align it on bright stars, or maybe on a rooftop, or on a light on the horizon or something in the city. It's very easy to align.
Yeah, and what you want is when you center something in the middle of that tube, you then want to be able to go into your eyepiece and see it.
Yes.
So those
first eyepiece, and then you will align that little red dot for the target.
Yeah. And so that's why you got to align it. What I used to do is get what I wanted to see at high magnification in my eyepiece, and then I'd go and adjust that thing to point in where it needed to look. And then from there on, it was always aligned. Yeah, those are cheap, and they're really indispensable. They'll make your life a lot easier. We call them telrads here. What do you guys call them?
It's a red dot finder. We also have telrads, but telrads I think are too big. Like it's small.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, telrads look horrible.
They're terrible, did you say?
Yeah, I mean, they work. They do the job, but they just look horrible.
Yeah, they're good, but they're too big.
All right. Well, I'm showing my age again. I used to use telrads, but now it's probably better. So, okay. All right. Well, good. Thank you guys very much. I guess we'll stop here on this episode of Telescope Talk. Next time, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Let us know what you would like to discuss. The 4 of us are going to get together, and we're going to come up with some topic ideas. They're going to start going to their astronomy clubs and things like that. Some topics we might want to revisit, some specific telescope types or specific telescope models that you can buy. We won't
write emails to Tony and ask your stuff.
Yes, definitely. So, and leave comments on this video, and we're checking those as well. So we are. A lot of you guys are already in chat, and mostly Galaxia is going to be talking. You're talking about the test launch coming up later this month. I will be live streaming that, and I'm hoping some of us will get together at the NASA Causeway at least to maybe to see the launch together. I did a Spaceman News on test yesterday. The launch date set April April 16th, and we're looking forward to that. As it's less than 2 weeks now. So, you guys coming? Are you guys coming?
To the test launch?
Yeah.
No, sadly not.
Well, you're always welcome. It would be great. It would be great.
I was disappointed to see that the NASA social is for U.S. citizens only.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes anyone can go, but for this one, it's just U.S. citizens.
Yeah, I don't bother with those. They're a lot of work, so I just do my own thing now. And but it is nice to do the NASA socials. I've done them a couple times. But yeah, I guess they are sometimes picky about who can do them. So anyhow, okay, folks. Well, that is it for this hangout. We'll see you in 2 weeks, where we'll be back talking about the night sky. Go outside, whether you have a telescope or not. Look up and just enjoy it, and just appreciate the wonders that are up there, because our night skies are one of our most precious resources, and we want you to enjoy them. So please ask us questions. Please join us next time, and we'll talk more about the wonderful world of amateur astronomy. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, keep looking up.
Keep drinking up.
And if you're building your own backyard observatory, don't move.
You should have pointed that out. And don't ever move. Okay, I think it's off. But anyway. Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much. That was another good episode. I really enjoyed it. I guess if you guys have any ideas or things, I'm open. So let me know how it goes, John. With your
I'll get email addresses.
Okay, cool. All right. Talk to you soon, guys.
Yeah, push that email questions. It would be very fine.
Huh?
Push that our viewers' question. Take the questions via email to you. That would be very good.
Yeah.
For having new ideas.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm hoping people will.